All right, so we got a recording in progress. I guess first thing to say is Happy Labor Day to everyone. I hope that this weekend finds you fine, and I'm doing good. Nothing special going on, but really just enjoying an opportunity to pursue a peaceful and insightful lifestyle. I think the quietness of my lifestyle in a relative way just gives me a chance to practice taking my foot off the gas and my foot off the brake and just letting this vehicle roll and roll according to this weird guidance that I experience. And I think it's the Holy Spirit from what I've studied in A Course in Miracles and other areas. And I'm very happy to say the Holy Spirit really is real. Give
Mhm.
them a try. I'm so glad that I did. At any rate, you all have the agenda for tonight. And for some reason, well, I saw this video I liked on the Bhagavad Gita. Do you guys, you've heard of the Bhagavad
Yeah.
Gita, right?
Yep.
So it's part of the Hindu spiritual writings from the Upanishads, which are part of the Vedas, and the Bhagavad Gita is part of the. At any rate, I still get confused as to what's what, but these are writings that come from like 500-600 years before Jesus. I think India is something like 6,000 years old, and common sense should tell us that they probably have learned something in 6,000 years over there. There are some arrogant folks in the West, though, who call them backwater and primitive. But at any rate, let me put this on for you. Now, listen, this is about an hour and 20 minutes or so. Uh, I'll play maybe 10, 11 minutes I have here. And if you'd like to hear more, we can always bring in some more next time, okay?
Okay.
Excellent. I'll share screen here as usual, and let's take a listen to this video and close some stuff up here so I can get to it. I am faltering a little bit, but we all know how it is with all the technical skills we have to possess these days.
In this series, I will be unpacking the concepts of the Bhagavad Gita. My inspiration for the series came from the audiobook by Jack Hawley, The Bhagavad Gita, a walkthrough for Westerners. I will be referencing Jack's book, as well as other Bhagavad Gita resources found online. I've included relevant links in the description below. This series will be my further exploration and personal understanding of the Gita. I hope you find this to be beneficial for you and your personal journey. Chapter 1: The Despondency of Arjuna. To set the stage, the Bhagavad Gita is a chapter within a larger story, the Mahabharata. This chapter conveys a conversation between the divine and a prince named Arjuna. And during this conversation, Arjuna is given the answer to the ultimate question: what is the meaning of life? The story takes place on a battlefield as a great war is about to begin. Krishna is the guide and charioteer for his dear friend Arjuna. Arjuna is a prince who is at war with his cousin. In this war, Arjuna represents the divine virtues such as truth, justice, right action, and compassion, while his cousin represents the three gates to hell, which is desire, greed, and anger. This war represents a metaphor for the war each of us faces in our daily lives. Making matters complicated for Arjuna is the fact that within the army of his cousin are many of his beloved teachers, family and friends, including his grandfather, the field commander Bhishma. As the war is about to begin, Arjuna asks Krishna to draw the chariot to a position where he could view both the armies. As his eyes fell upon many of his beloved people within the army of the enemy, Arjuna falls into despair and drops his weapons. Slumped in defeat and sorrow, Arjuna declares he will not fight. Now it is worth noting at this point that Arjuna is actually a great and renowned warrior. He has a powerful arm on his side, he has a good chance of winning, but he doesn't see the cost of lives lost on both sides as being worth the cost of any goal. I would not kill them, even for 3 worlds. Why then for this poor earth? It matters not if I myself am killed. It is at this moment of Arjuna's greatest despair that Krishna assumes his true role as the ultimate teacher. Chapter 2, Sankhya Yoga, the Path of Knowledge. Krishna, seeing Arjuna overwhelmed with compassion, his eyes dimmed with flowing tears and full of despondency, consoles him. He reminds Arjuna of the reputation he has built as a noble and fearless warrior. If he refuses to fight, he will never be respected again, and all those around him will believe him to be a coward, destroying the respect he has worked so hard to build. Arjuna argues that he will not be able to live with himself if he has to kill his teachers or even his cousins. Rather would I content myself with a beggar's crust than kill these teachers of mine, these precious noble souls. To slay these masters who are my benefactors would be to stain the sweetness of life's pleasures with their blood. Arjuna begs Krishna for guidance. Lord Krishna replies, "The wise grieve neither for the dead nor the living. There was never a time when I was not, nor you, nor these princes. There will never be a time when we shall cease to be." As the soul experiences in this body infancy, youth, old age, and finally death, it then passes into a new body. Death pertains to the body and not the Atma. The Atman, which is the spirit or soul within, which pervades all that we see, is imperishable. Nothing can destroy the spirit. It was not born, it will never die, nor once having been, can it cease to be. Unborn, eternal, ever-enduring, changeless, yet most ancient, the spirit does not die when the body dies. As a person discards their old clothes and puts on new, so the spirit throws off its worn-out bodies and takes fresh ones. Be not anxious about these armies, Arjuna. The spirit in man is imperishable. Those external factors which bring cold and heat, pain and happiness, joy and sorrow, they come and go. They are not permanent. Endure them bravely, O Prince. The hero whose soul is unmoved by circumstance, who accepts pleasure and pain, profit and loss, victory and defeat with equal measure, only they are fit for immortality or immersion in the divine. Remember that one's svat dharma, or duty in life, is the highest service to the Atman or true self within. For a warrior such as you, one's duty to fight against evil, greed, cruelty and jealousy is your highest duty, and you must not shy away from it. Arjuna, I have given you a brief explanation on the Atman. Now listen carefully, and I will explain a practical method, Karma Yoga, by means of which you shall break through the bondage of all action. On this path, endeavor is never wasted, nor can it ever be repressed. Even a very little of its practice protects one from the cycle of death and rebirth. You have the right to work or action in this world, but do not be attached to the fruits of your labor. While no one can deny you the outcomes of your action, you can refuse to be attached or driven by these rewards. It is only the petty-minded who work for reward alone. Physical action is far inferior to a mind concentrated on the divine. The sages, guided by pure intellect, renounce attachment to the fruits of action, and freed from the chains of rebirth, they reach the highest bliss. Arjuna asks, "My Lord, how can we recognize the saint who has attained pure intellect? who has reached this state of bliss and whose mind is ready. How do they talk? How do they live? And how do they act? Lord Krishna replied, when a person has given up the desires of the heart and is satisfied with the self alone, be sure that they have reached the highest state. The sage whose mind is unruffled in suffering, whose desire is not roused by enjoyment, who is without attachment, anger, or fear, take them to be one who stands at that lofty level. They who, wherever they go, is attached to no person and to no place, who accepts good and evil alike, neither welcoming the one nor repulsed by the other, take them to be one who is merged in the infinite. They who can withdraw their senses from the attraction of objects, as the tortoise draws their limbs within their shells, take it that such a one has attained perfection. Restraining them all, they meditate steadfastly on the divine, for they who conquer their senses achieve perfection. When a person dwells on the objects of the sense, they create an attraction for them. Attraction develops into desire, and desire breeds anger. Anger induces delusion. Through delusion, reason is shattered, and loss of reason leads to destruction. But the self-controlled soul who moves among sense objects, free from either attachment or repulsion, they win eternal peace. Having attained peace, they become free from misery. For when the mind gains peace, right action follows. Right action is not for those who cannot concentrate. Without concentration, there cannot be meditation. They who cannot meditate must not expect peace. And without peace, how can anyone expect happiness? Therefore, Arjuna, they who keep their senses detached from their objects, take it that their mind is purified. The saint is awake when the world sleeps, and they ignore that for which the world lives. This is the state of the self, the supreme spirit, to which if a person once attains, it shall never be taken from them. Even at the time of leaving the body, they will remain firmly enthroned there, and will become one with the eternal. Never forget that the true goal of life is nothing short of merging with the divine consciousness itself. Chapter 3. Karma Yoga, the path of action. Arjuna questioned, "My lord, you are adding to my confusion. If knowledge is above action, why do you advise me to engage in this terrible fight? Fighting is action. Please be clearer. Which is the best path for my spiritual welfare?" Lord Krishna replied, "In this world there are two paths. There is the path of knowledge for the contemplative person, and the path of action for the busy, action-orientated person. Remember, true knowledge is knowing the Atman, the true self within. When you clarify your intellect through either contemplation or selfless action, you get to realize the Atman. Both paths lead to realization of the self. No person can attain freedom or perfection by merely refusing to act. They cannot even for a moment remain really inactive, for the qualities of nature, such as eating, sleeping, and breathing, will compel them to act. They who remain motionless, refusing to act, but all the while brooding over sensuous objects, that deluded soul is simply a hypocrite. But Arjuna, they whose mind controls the senses, they are beginning to practice Karma Yoga, the path of right action, keeping themselves always unattached. Do your duty, Arjuna, for duty-orientated action is superior to inaction. In this world, people are bound to the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth by their actions, unless their actions are performed as a sacrifice. When the person offers up both the action and the fruits of that action to divinity, then that action is non-binding. Therefore, Arjuna, let your acts be done without attachment, as a sacrifice only. Sacrifice, in this case,
So how was that, my friend?
It was great.
Did you already know the fundamental story of the Bhagavad Gita?
No, I did not.
So was this helpful? I mean, there's a lot of stuff we hear about, but we never really get a chance to check it out. And then there are further inhibitions, like my old church. It was like it was sacrilegious to read anything other than the Bible.
Mhm.
And what I found once I became sacrilegious enough to check out other stuff is how much they have in common. I mean, it didn't steer me to the devil when I read the Gita or the Quran or other things. It just kind of widened my understanding in more of a confirming way, because they all kind of say the same thing to me in different ways. Did you find anything stated there that jumped out as something you may have heard in A Course in Miracles? Anybody?
All about this, that our suffering is from attachment to our senses, to the worldly, which I
Yep.
thought is really, isn't that part of the Buddhism, the four?
Yeah,
yeah.
non-attachment from Buddhism, right?
Right.
And did you notice the statement? They said something like anger induces delusion.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the Course says anger in any form is never justified, because when you get angry, you literally get crazier.
Mhm.
Uh, the first special theme, what is forgiveness? And there's a paragraph there about the unforgiving thought. And all it wants to do is to seek itself, and it's not open to any other way of looking at things. But then when you calm down, you kind of come out of the craziness. So, again, anger can never serve you because you lose reason. And when you aren't reasonable, you can't see, right? There's only one point of view. Any other comments on anything else you heard there? The Atman. Have you heard that phrase before? It was mentioned. Do you know what that is?
Well,
That's their name for God, right?
Yeah.
Well, it gets a little complicated. Brahman is one of the primary words they use for God, but Atman is the enlivens, the thing that enlivens spirit. It's life, it's like how things become alive is through a force they call the Atman.
So that's the activator, is what?
Yeah.
So is that the equivalent of the Holy Spirit for?
Well, yes, and maybe even in the Bible, the metaphysical definition of Lord is that activating, enlivened force that runs through all of us. So when we say Lord, we're speaking to our higher self, just like Holy Spirit, or asking guidance from our Atman, Atman. Okay.
Mhm.
So, pardon me?
Yeah.
You with
Okay.
me? Okay, so just something I thought being experienced people with the course. And just so you think it's an accident, I'm still working on showing you how many versions there are of the universal curriculum. We've been talking about that since April when we first started, haven't we?
I love seeing the similarities, and they are all there. I love it.
And as a matter of fact, maybe we might take a look at the AA and ACIM comparison that we were talking about earlier tonight. So I'll send that to you. If you think it's worthwhile, we'll go through it together, okay?
Sure.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, listen, any other comments before we get into our official talks for tonight?
Does the Bible itself address anywhere the idea of non-attachment?
No,
No, yeah, okay.
not to my knowledge.
Right, I'm just thinking when that question came and I couldn't think of
That's
a place
great
either.
question.
So that's more of an Eastern philosophy, which to me is the course, is an Eastern philosophy on non-dualism.
Yes, I agree with you all the way around. The rest of you with us? Any other comments? Yeah.
The other thing that I noticed is that when I'm trying to get the words right, when Krishna spoke to Arjuna, he talked about knowledge.
Yes.
That's I wrote that down.
And what did he do? Do you remember what he said about knowledge?
He said knowledge is knowing Atman, and then he also mentioned something about unattachment.
So knowledge is knowing the Atman. That's your reality, the higher self. Does that make sense? And the other stuff like, oh, I'm killing my cousins, and oh, I'm gonna have to kill my teachers, and oh, it's not worth it because I love them all. They're my family. And Krishna, who's wearing the costume of a chariot driver, right? Krishna is really this, I forget exactly, but the point is he's saying, don't be so attached to Maya, to the illusion, okay? Do what is yours to do. There's a bigger picture here. Do your part. By the way, that could have been Hitler's motivation. You see any similarities? I'm just saying, stay open. Maybe there's a bigger plan here. Now I'm thinking of Donald Trump. We do what we have to do, knowing and trusting that it's ultimately for our good. Isn't that the same message, Krishna? It's for a higher good.
If we use it that way, yeah.
Yes. And if you don't, you'll keep coming around getting another chance, because that's how love would deal with you. It's very patient. Am I good on that, Linda? Was there?
Yes, you explained it very well, and I'm writing it down because I didn't understand that part, and I've sort of looked at this before, but I never could understand the conversation about the battle. I couldn't get that in my head, and the way you were describing it, now I understand it. So I'm quickly writing it down.
Don't be attached to Maya so much. And what's another word? What's the definition, English definition of Maya?
Illusions. Is it a veil?
Hmm?
Is it
illusions?
Yeah, Maya means illusion. The same
Mhm.
thing, of course, in Miracles talks about, right?
Yeah, right.
All right. All right. If we're feeling enthusiastic enough, why don't we tackle our reading for tonight? We're on page 38 in the text, and we're working our way through chapter 3, our group 1 oracle selection. It's called The Innocent Perception, and we're starting on page 38, Roman numeral 2, miracles as true perception. So I have Sherilyn as our first reader, and then Linda, and then number 3, Kathleen. Number 4 is Dee. And no, that's probably good enough. I don't have to read. Okay. We may not get that far. So, you ready,
Okay.
Sherilyn?
Yes, I am.
Did you get your new book yet or not yet?
Oh, yeah, that's what I showed you when I first came on.
Yeah,
You
when
didn't
your
see it?
camera wasn't on, right?
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations.
It's heavy, though. I'm too old to carry a heavy
Oh,
book.
gee, does it beat the 50-pound Bible you mentioned, though?
Yes, it does.
All right. Please
Okay.
get us started, my friend.
All right. I have stated that the basic concepts referred to in this course are not matters of degree. Certain fundamental concepts cannot be understood in terms of opposites. It is impossible to conceive of light and darkness or everything and nothing as joint possibilities. They are all true or false. It is essential that you realize your thinking will be erratic until a firm commitment to one or the other is made. A firm commitment to darkness or nothingness, however, is impossible. No one has ever lived who has not experienced some light and something. No one, therefore, is able to deny truth totally, even if he thinks he can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Comments, questions? Do you understand sentence 3? Does that make sense to you, what Jesus is saying here? It is impossible to conceive of light and darkness or everything and nothing as joint possibilities.
Yeah, because they're opposites.
Yeah, they would utterly cancel it one or another out.
Yes.
So,
Don't understand then that sentence to me, and then sentence 7 and 8 don't seem to go with that sentence.
well,
That it's saying sentence 4 says they are all true or all false. And
yeah,
then later in the paragraph, it says no one has ever lived who has not experienced some light and something.
correct.
No one therefore is able to deny truth totally. So that's saying we can know both.
Well,
Not if you're not if you're enlightened.
Well, go back to 6D and read that one first.
A firm commitment to darkness or nothingness, however, is impossible.
Isn't that true?
Okay.
Things
There's always some light.
totally and completely dark.
Okay.
Your consciousness denies that. Something's going on. You're experiencing something. That's what consciousness is. If all the lights go out forever, what is there that can be done? What can happen? I'm asking.
Yeah, I hear you. It just seems like
Taking
sentence
a while
four.
to sink in. Go ahead. I'm
It
sorry.
just seems like sentence four is the opposite of those other statements.
All right. So let's take sentence 4. They are all true or all false. So if the reality of life is some sort of light, some sort of enlivenment, activation, then we're on our way to establishing maybe life is possible. Maybe everything is possible. But your own experiences, however slight, have shown you some glimmer of something happening.
Okay.
Yeah, it's taken a while. It took me a while. Sit with it for a minute, okay, or
Yeah.
longer. Other comments in the meantime, though. All I'm saying is, if you've experienced anything at all, it attests to the falsity of darkness.
Right.
Okay.
And light is always there. Darkness is just part of the illusion of the separation.
I'm with you, Kathleen. So we're saying if there's any light at all, it attests to the truth of something. I'm sorry. Which one is right? Light or darkness? Everything or nothing? Well, all darkness and all nothing, you've already seen some light.
Okay.
So if some light is true, however small, already it's canceling out the concept that darkness is real.
Mhm.
If there was nothing at all, it would be oblivion, wouldn't it?
Mhm.
Are you obliviated? Because if so, there's no sense to anything. There's nothing. So even if you've only gotten a glimmer of light, and remember it's non-dual, right? You can't have some something and some nothing. Which one's ahead so far?
Light.
And so that's the only one that has the promise of truth. Or does oblivion seem to be the truth?
Okay, I'm following you. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments here? Our next reader then is Miss Myers, please. Paragraph 2.
Okay. Innocence is not a partial attribute. It is not real until it is total. The partly innocent are apt to be quite foolish at times. It is not until their innocence becomes a viewpoint with universal application that it becomes wisdom. Innocent or true perception means that you never misperceive and always see truly. More simply, it means that you never see what does not exist and always see what does.
So the true state is one in which you always see what does exist. What is that?
Innocence.
And when you're operating under true wisdom, you never see what does not exist. So whenever you see things that cannot exist, what are they?
Maya.
Well said, all of you. Do you see what I mean?
Mhm.
We doing okay with that last sentence? More simply, it means you never misperceive if you refuse to see what cannot or does not exist. If I see darkness, by definition, it's got to be a lie. You can't have everything and nothing as a possible concept. Isn't that dualism?
Mhm.
Let's say it one more way. You can't serve two masters. Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
When I was a young man, I used to think, okay, the trick to success is balance. Okay, I get angry sometimes, but that's justified. Usually I'm really nice. So I delude myself into believing that my anger is justified, or me attacking you is justified sometimes. But other times I'm very loving. You can't hold two concepts that are opposed to each other. Love and fear, okay? Kindness and hatred, liking and disliking. Yeah, well, I got this balance going. Do you see what he's trying to shatter here?
Mhm.
Isn't this the essence of dualism?
Yeah.
If I'm trying to serve two masters who are telling me opposing things, the result is I'll blow my head off. It can't be done. It's impossible. Heaven is a decision I must make. Be vigilant only for God and his kingdom. Other things are going to crop up here in level 2, but don't be taken in by them. Don't get attached to them. Okay?
Mhm.
Stand up for the truth, because something and nothing can't stand together. Heaven and hell can't stand together. Life and death can't stand together. Truth and illusion can't stand together. And to try to make them do so is impossible. Well, I did it for a while. But that's different from eternity, right?
Mhm.
Different from being permanent, you see?
Yeah, well, I did it for a while and saw it didn't work.
Me too. Me too.
It's kind of like they block each other out, and you end up being nowhere instead of being there.
Correct. Okay. The Course says bring illusions to truth, and truth will dissolve them.
Mhm.
But some of us try and use a tactic. Well, I could bring the truth to illusion.
Mhm.
But to bring truth to illusion only makes a lie out of the truth. Truth has to be itself. You can't water it down
No.
by bringing it into illusion,
No.
or the truth itself becomes illusory.
Right. Right.
So how does that make you feel about making a one-sided decision? Had you thought about it before? Are you well on your way to being monistic or non-dual in your approach to living?
Well, that's what I'm healing, is the split mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What whole healing is about from. Yeah.
Yes. Do you see how a split is trying to serve two masters? A
Totally.
split mind?
Yeah.
And what'd you say about healing?
That's what I'm trying to heal.
You have to return to monism. One thing, not one thing plus something else. And I'll go back to that page 7 that you like, D, in the text, where Jesus says, awe is not an appropriate response to me. And he goes on to say, I have nothing in me that you don't have. The only difference between us now is that I have nothing else. I am one thing. I'm not two things.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to hold together two things that can never go together. They're diametrically opposed in every way. One is true. By definition, all others must be false. There is no something else.
So,
that's what Jesus is teaching. Yes,
so
Kathleen.
in essence, there's nothing to be healed. There's only the illusion to be released.
Yes, ma'am. There's nothing to fear. Lesson 48.
Mm-hmm.
How can you fear nothing?
Mm-hmm.
Because something else is, yes, there's a comment.
I thought you were finished. I was going to comment on Kathleen's. There's nothing to heal. However, I do need to see
Mm-hmm.
where I am, what illusions I'm carrying.
Yeah, that's part of the journey, is seeing where we're off the mark.
Yeah.
And why is it a journey? You know that line in the Course, I can't think of where it is, and Jesus says, fear not that you will be suddenly hurled into reality.
And I'm just speaking for me, from my perspective, is when I look at it and I say, oh, I have to heal this. No, I don't have to I don't have to fix the illusion or make the illusion. I have to release the illusion, because if I'm trying to fix the illusion and make it and to heal it, then it's part of the illusion.
You're giving it energy as though
Right,
it were actually true.
Right. And it's not, and that
and that's go.
And
yeah.
that's the twist in the mind that is really, the only thing I can say is that's something that really boggles the mind. And by going through the Course and repeating the Course, it kind of gets straightened out a little bit. But because just because of let me just say this, because of such the confusion that we create in our mind, for me, it boggles the mind sometimes.
And what mind is that it boggles?
The one that's in the illusion. Because if I wasn't in the illusion, there wouldn't have anything to boggle my mind.
Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things will be added to you.
Mm-hmm.
So letting go of the mind is in what mind is this hard?
Mm-hmm.
Because in and of itself, isn't it easier to be one thing?
Mm-hmm.
what is complicated? What mind is this that makes this a complicated issue?
It's the
Starts
ego
with
mind.
an E. Yeah.
It's the ego mind.
It's the attachments that I don't want to let go of it, that I
And
value it.
Yeah, and that Krishna advises, don't get caught up in that mind.
Mhm.
One of these days, okay, you're gonna help me. We're gonna put together this big workshop on metaphors and see
Yeah.
if we can't simplify some things. Anything else? Can we try one more paragraph?
Sure.
All right, I'm showing we're up to Kathleen.
Yep. When you lack confidence in what someone will do, you are attesting to your belief that he is not in his right mind. This is hardly a miracle-based frame of reference. It also has the disastrous effect of denying the power of the miracle. The miracle perceives everything as it is. If nothing but the truth exists, right-minded seeing cannot see anything but perfection. If I have said that only what God's creates, or what you create with the same will, has any real existence, this then is all the innocents can see. They do not suffer from distorted perception.
And so do me a favor, I'm looking at time, but let's just take a minute and go to chapter 17. And we're on page 352, maybe? Okay.
Mhm.
So Kathleen, could you read that section, Roman 2, and a little of paragraph 1 here?
It's the forgiven world.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you imagine how beautiful those who forgive will look to you? In no fantasy have you ever seen anything so lovely. Nothing you see here, sleeping or waking, comes near to such loveliness, and nothing will you value like unto this, nor hold so dear.
So
No-
let's stop there.
Okay.
Do you see why I had you turn there?
Mhm.
And last week we read lesson 52 in the workbook, remember?
Yeah.
The review lesson number 52. Let me read it to you. Whoops. Yeah, 52 on page 84. In truth, reality is never frightening. It looks like the forgiven world. It is impossible that reality could upset me. It operates from the innocent perception, which is very close to knowledge. You with me? Do you see how our reality is 180 degrees from reality? It's the whole thing is turned upside down.
Mhm.
Insightful, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Somebody read paragraph 4 because we can hurry up. D.
Okay. You are you are afraid of God's will because you have used your own mind, which he created in the likeness of his own, to miscreate. The mind can miscreate only when it believes it is not free. An imprisoned mind is not free because it is possessed or held back by itself. It is therefore limited, and the will is not free to assert itself. To be one is to be of one mind or will. When the will of the sonship and the Father are one, their perfect accord is heaven.
So there's that restoration of wholeness, which is a definition of healing, isn't it?
Mhm.
What is it that rendered the mind limited?
Our attachment to illusions.
Mhm.
And what is the fundamental illusion that
That was
rendered the mind limited? Starts with a S, E-P,
separation.
okay? The idea of separate heavens, of you being an individual, it sounded good, but separation is a limitation because it weakens. A separate mind does not have the strength of wholeness. It is a power, but a weak power, a caricature of true power. It's like the one that scoops a bucket of water out of the ocean and carries it to shore and says, now I have my own private ocean. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do, but it's not like it's a caricature. It has no depth. It's no substance. So a bucket of water ocean is a severe limitation to power. Are these good analogies I'm trying to work with here? All right. Well, looks like we're done. We did 4, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Any final comments, my friend?
No, it was all helpful. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Hey,
Where did you hear separated heavens? I never heard that before.
well, you got to buy my book.
Oh, okay.
It's called Earth School, Why We Think We're Here, My 12 Teachings from A Course in Miracles. And it's basically an example of some of the things I've learned and some of the insights I've gained from my 20 years or so of studying A Course in Miracles. And I show it in 12 teachings. One of those teachings is called God's Kids and the Tiny Mad Idea.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, Dee read it, Kathleen read it.
I read it. It's very good.
All right, I can always sell another book. At the bottom of your agenda, there's a link. Okay.
Well, okay.
You asked.
What was your question, Linda? I didn't hear your initial question.
I never heard the term separated heavens.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So take a look at that. It basically says some of God's kids have this crazy idea. Why don't we separate from Dad and we could have our own heavens? We're powerful, right? Just like our source. Well, why don't we all have separate heavens instead of one?
Because they wind up being separate hells.
And that was the fall. Okay, that was the fall. Thank you for your
Thank you.
attention.
This is coming your way soon.
What is it?
A letter for you, a check for you.
Oh, hey, I'll take it. Thank
I
you.
knew you would.
I'm a struggling preacher here. I'll see you guys next time or maybe tomorrow for those that are joining, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Good night.
Good
Good night.
night.
Thank you.